E360 TV proudly presents messages of inspirational stories. Live streaming now to millions of devices, including Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, with your host, Donna Guinois, producer and host, Jim Grant, producer and host, along with Michaela Vidal, administrator and host, and Gaia Guinois Balconi Wada, editor-in-chief. And welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. It's such a pleasure for us to be here with you today. We got the Beard of Knowledge with us, and also Mr. Emerson Brantley. We're going to be talking about some head injuries. This is a very, very serious content we're going to be covering today, because every Tuesdays we're going to be covering about finding health naturally as a series we're going to be doing every Tuesday from now to the end of the year. Monday, of course, is everything to do with entrepreneurs making a difference in business. Wednesdays, of course, is youth making a difference. That also applies to not only young people creating a business or creating a nonprofit for a cause or something of this nature, but also it's for people who are adults who are mentors to young people. That's what you can expect on Wednesdays. And then Thursdays, this Thursday, we got a treat for you. We got a young lady that she's going to be our guest. And pets we love. Her dogs are red pit bulls, and several of her dogs have been in several movies. So we're looking in Hollywood movies. So we're looking forward to that. Of course, Friday, we're going to have Deb Lewis with us, Women in Leadership. But let's get this show kicked off with the Beard of Knowledge with us, and also my good friend, Mr. Emerson Brantley, our Director of Marketing. I'm going to bring Emerson on first. Say good morning to him, or good afternoon. Hey, Emerson, how are you, sir?
Hello, Jim.
So good to be. So glad you're here with us. I know we got to cut this short today because somebody said there was a hurricane coming down there in Florida. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's got me in its sights. So I'll be probably bugging out in about 15 or 20 minutes in.
Yeah, I understand. We want to get this going, and I hope that hurricane will not mess up your hair there, brother.
No, I don't have a whole lot of it to mess up. Not like some sergeants that I know.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. And we've got our good friend, Mr. Joel Peterson, with us. We nickname him, we call him the Beard of Knowledge. He works with Dr. Clearfield out there at the Dr. Clearfield Clinic. And Emerson, just say hello to Joel Peterson. And
hello, Joel.
Nice to finally meet you, Emerson.
It's good to meet you as well.
Likewise. Thank you for the invite today.
Thank you, sir. We're going to get into this because Emerson's time with us today is very, very limited because he's got other things he's got to do before that hurricane hits, and hurricanes won't wait. So we're going to be talking about head injuries. So Emerson, I'm just going to let you share a little bit about, you've got a tremendous story and a journey with your traumatic brain injuries. I'm just going to turn the mic over to you, sir.
Joel, I'm not sure how much you know, but for our listeners at least, almost 2 years ago, I had a traumatic brain injury that gave me a stay of 6 weeks in ICU, of which I have no memory. And then they put in a tube, a shunt, brain drain for the non-medical people, from my brain down to underneath my stomach. And I woke up in the rehab hospital, and that's where my memory kicks back in. And I spent another couple of weeks in rehab, wondering why I was there and why everybody was being so over the top nice and motivational to me. Oh, you don't have to. We're going to do squats today. Oh, you don't have to squat that low. So it was quite an experience. I was very fortunate. The only thing that when I got out, my neurosurgeon, when they were discharging me, said, Mr. Brantley, you realize that most of my patients who come in with your level of brain injury don't walk out.
Yeah.
And I said, well, actually, Doc, I didn't know that, and I'm kind of glad I didn't. I've been very fortunate. I don't look for, this may sound strange to some listeners, but I don't look for 100%. You'll be back to 100% before you know it kind of stuff. Because of my background in marketing and the work that I've done over the years, I'm a real subscriber to the Japanese idea of Kaizen, which is continuous improvement, which is, it's not about being at 100%. It's about always being able to be in an improving place. And so for me, the last just under 2 years have been learning and adapting and growing and continuously improving.
And then as I've seen Emerson come back, he's been on the show with us for, months now, 10 months or something like that. And he's coming back, and I've seen him, progress. And then recently he had a setback. He had a second accident, and you still got a little circle around your eye there.
Yeah,
huh?
I still have a black eye.
Yeah.
Well, actually, about 4 months after I was discharged, well, a couple of months after I was discharged, my neurosurgeon was so happy with how I was progressing that he said, I don't need to see you in 3 months or 6 months. Let's schedule your next check-in for a year. So I really had missed a bullet. I really was in a place where he was satisfied that I had really come through much better than they even anticipated. About 2 months after that, we were rear-ended, sitting at a stoplight. That set me back quite a bit. And a lot of the recovery from that, for me, has been much more of a challenge. It wasn't a huge collision, but it was an unexpected one. It's sort of one of those things like, when you're walking along and you step off of a 4-inch curb and you're not expecting it. But it hit me right on the spot of my head where the shunt is located. And so that's been a real challenge. Then just a couple of weeks ago, I had a fall, and that's been a challenge as well. So it's learning to live with it and grow with it and work with it. And I am very happy. And a lot of thanks here to Jim. I have, through the communication and the work and the things that we've done, has been a part of the recovery process in utilizing the brain. And by the way, just as a backdrop, I've had a fair amount of experience working as a marketer, working in the brain space and in the brain research and the elasticity of the brain and understanding the different elements of how our brains process and grow and how they shrivel and the things that need to be done in order to maintain that. And that's been a big part of the recovery for me, is in terms of not getting all frustrated, but taking the time and giving myself plenty of leeway and every day in every way getting better and better.
That's amazing, Emerson, because I wanted the folks out there in TV land to hear Emerson's story, his journey, of having 3 setbacks, one major one there, and the other one a little bit minor, and if you want to call it minor, not as severe. Let me put it like that. And then another one, but notice his attitude is just, I don't want to be 100%. I want to just continually try to improve a little bit each day. Be kind to yourself, love yourself, and be patient. And I've got Joel's email address down there, Joel Peterson, a.k.a. the Beard of Knowledge. I stole that name or that nickname from the the Pawn Stars, because they have the guy come over. But, Joel, I've known for several years. He works directly with Dr. Clearfield, and drclearfield.net is the website there. And I'm just going to turn the mic over to you because there's people out there want to know what they can do. What is what can they do about a traumatic brain injury or head injury or things like this? I'm just going to turn the mic over to you because you're the subject matter expert.
Thank you very much, Jim. Emerson, if I have you correct, a little over 2 years ago is when you had your first injury, correct?
Correct.
And then
I was unresponsive on that one. Then they brought the ambulance, and fortunately, my wife saw what was present.
Was it an open wound, bleeding? No.
No, but that was internal.
Yep, exactly.
There was internal bleeding. I had a brain infection in the hospital, as a matter of fact, but there was internal bleeding.
Okay. Was it a regular hospital or a brain injury hospital?
It was their brain injury, their brain injury ICU.
Okay, got you. And then the second injury you had, was that the rear end?
Yeah.
Okay, and that was 2 months ago?
No. The rear end took place about 2 months after I got out of the hospital.
Oh, geez.
And then about 2 weeks ago, I had a fall. That's where the black eye came from.
Okay, awesome.
At least that's his story about that's where the black eye came from.
So 2 weeks ago.
They again, I've had more CT scans and X-rays and everything else than you can shake a stick at.
A little bit about my story.
Yes.
Real quick. 2016 is when I first came to Dr. Clearfield, because in 2015 I was getting really sick. And I got down to 135 pounds and I was dying, and Mom moved in and she had to feed me by hand to keep me alive. The VA said it was in my head and you need to quit stressing and you need to eat more. So I was getting the typical runaround because they just didn't know what they were per se doing. And they read labs according to insurance, government, and pharmaceutical corporations. So I came to Dr. Clearfield after doing some research and family helping me and this and that, and he balanced out my hormones. So he is a thyroid specialist, and then he was starting to get into hormones, and he's also an acupuncturist. And he's been doing this going on 45 years now. And I hooked on to Dr. Mark L. Gordon with he's got his own a TBI med legal clinic. And he was on Joe Rogan a couple times, and he's what he calls an interventional endocrinologist. So in essence, he's a different endocrinologist than what you find at your regular hospitals. And what we're finding out is there's brain hormones called neurosteroids. And the body hormones help control those hormones up in the brain. And traumatic brain injuries, the neurosteroid deficiency or excesses can happen many years later, and sometimes they can happen really fast. And this is where neurofeedback, transcranial magnetic stimulation, electromagnetic brain pulse, these are like 3 different styles that they've had some great success with to help fix that. And now also Dr. Clearfield and Dr. Mark L. Gordon and some others that are getting into this industry, we're starting to realize that we can regulate and record some of the hormones of the brain. So we can balance out the same way we balance out the hormones of the body with supplements and food is the same thing we do for the brain. So that's that whole process that we go through. And that's what Dr. Clearfield's been specializing in. And he has a 1-page lab that he does in reference to hormones, but we have a bigger page that's more intense for the brain hormones. And that's the protocol and the process that he goes through and starts. And it goes with a whole lot of questions. So he bases a lot of this off of how you feel right now and what's going on with you right now. And then we also try to incorporate the best foods, the best energetic type of foods, and the best alive foods that have the most energy that can start to help repair your brain.
Let me just interject here very quickly. We're going to be getting Dr. Clearfield on the show probably 2 or 3 times, as our schedules have not been able to get in sync yet. But we're going to get him on here because he's got a ton of information. But also, too, Joel, very quickly, you suffered from PTSD, and you found out that PTSD is not mental, it is physical. And I'd like for you to, because you suffer from that. I mean, he was so bad, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just say this quickly. He couldn't go outside. And, you know, I just, so please share how that turnaround came in your life, please.
Yeah. One of the reasons I call myself the professional patient is because the first 3 years of my life, family and neighbors had to donate blood to keep me alive. 4.5, I was put on Ritalin. 5, I was put on Silert. So I've been in and out of hospitals and psychiatrists and psychologists my whole life, literally. And after the Marine Corps, a few years later, I started getting really sick. And then the VA's response was to put me on Vicodin, Somas, and Flexerols right away. And that led me down the medication route. And 24 years later, it got so bad that I was yelling, screaming, going through all those PTSD symptoms, the depression symptoms, suicidal symptoms, anxiety symptoms. And the anxiety symptoms got so bad that neurologically, I couldn't breathe on schedule. So I had to count sheep and animals to keep on par for breathing. It was horrible. I still got some, you know, issues with just thinking about breathing. And it was ridiculous, to say the least. So now what we're learning is you have your gut, your heart, and your brain. And we've got what people are talking about, the gut-brain connection. I actually believe it's a gut-heart-brain connection. And we have neurites that are in the gut and neurites that are in the heart. And these neurites are like the neurites that are in the brain. And they all communicate to each other. So when you throw off your gut with fake food, synthetic food, all this American crap food, it really throws off the whole system. And then you start to lose your mind. Now, for you, it's not, quote unquote, just mental because you have a traumatic brain injury, but we also have what's called, I have termed trauma brain injury. So you have non-impact and then you have impact. And Dr. Gabor Mate speaks about traumas in the past. And this is where a lot of our veterans are killing themselves that aren't combat veterans. They've got trauma in the past and they get reactivated or re-intensified when they're at war, not combat. And then when they come back, we're unbalanced with electromagnetic frequencies, electromagnetic radiation, bad foods, synthetics, toxins, poisons, chemicals, and all the above. So you have to balance out the gut, the heart, brain. So that you can, here, let me get the door real quick.
Yeah, that's okay. And while he's doing that, let me just humbly say I've known Joel for many years. And when I first met him, I could tell he wasn't quite out of the woods yet. But I have seen him, just like I've had the privilege of knowing. I knew Emerson beforehand, and I was with him, you know, a part of the way of his journey, not all of the time, because he was still recovering. But I've seen both of these men come back, and they're being, you know, able to overcome and deal with these traumatic brain injuries. And I've got Emerson talking to Joel and Dr. Clearfield, because we're going to be doing a series of this, maybe 10 or 15 minutes at a time, updates periodically on Emerson's journey, because that would be of value to you.
And not only that, I'm going to be looking into IACEs neurofeedback. We have a Frank Schallenberger here in Carson City that's close to Reno.
Mhm.
He's one of the top doctors in America, also does ozone
Mhm.
therapy and oxygen therapy, and he's highly
Mhm.
sought after. He's got a 3 or 4 month lead time too. So
Yeah.
I'm going to be looking into neurofeedback myself.
Good deal. Now, for you folks out there in TV land, you might say, okay, how does this happen? Because Joel and Dr. Clearfield are in Reno, Nevada. Emerson's over in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm in Brenham, Texas. So if you are remote, they can treat you virtually. And Joel, I'd like for you to take the lead on that and share how that would work for the folks out there in TV land.
Well, Dr. Clearfield has a 1 hour initial visit, and it's after we get a little bit of information from you, and we send you labs. So he would know that this is a traumatic brain injury, and depending on the cost and how deep he wants to go, Dr. Clearfield would send the labs to his area, and we would ask where he lives, and we'd figure out where the Quest or the Alta Labs or the LabCorp is in his area, and we could send the request, the consult to that area, and he would go get his labs. And we need usually a 2-week leeway because we do some pretty intense labs. Sometimes they take 2-3 weeks.
So they can do all their lab work locally at a place that you send them to, and then everything else can be done virtually over the internet through Zoom or something like that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Good deal. Good deal.
Yep. And then he does a visit just like you would if you were in the office, and he goes over your labs, and he's pretty thorough with the questions on, what happened when the impact. I'm already going to fill them in on what you've told me. Loss of memory the whole time, secondary impact, and sometimes those from the rears, these can be bad impacts, according to Dr. Gordon. They can be worse than the first one you had. So you're double jarring, and there's a lot going on there. Either or, we're still at the point we are at today to where we need to measure what's going on with your hormones. And I believe personally it's one of the best ways to stabilize people so that in the future you don't start to quote unquote lose your mind and go into those PTSD, depression, anxiety symptoms. That's what we're going to stave off.
What's amazing, when you normally, back before I was talking with Joel, when I hear the word hormones, I normally relate that to menopause and ladies and things like that. I'm just sharing my ignorance, to be honest with you. And please forgive me for that. But hormones play a big part in guys, don't they? But as guys, we don't think about that. We think about football. We think about cars, the important stuff in life,
Well, Jim, hormones cover a wide range. It's like protein. We think of protein like a protein shake.
Right.
But there are loads and loads of proteins, and all of those are interrelated with your DNA, with RNA. And hormones are part of that as well. My wife is a lifetime diabetic, type 1. And what is insulin?
Yeah.
It's a type of hormone. So it's
Yeah.
the range of things that we think about just as who are for non-medical. The range of things that we think about.
Oh yeah,
our tiny snapshot.
Yeah, because that's one thing I like. That's one thing I like about doing the TV show. People out there know that I'm honest, and when I don't know something, I admit it. So it comes by me very, very natural to not know a lot of things. I'll say that. But I see a gentleman back there in the background. He's wearing a white coat, and I think that is Joel. Why don't you introduce that gentleman there?
Patch Adams coat too. So we have to have cartoons on.
Patch Adams coat.
The doctor.
Amen. So I'll give him a quick sit rep.
Okay.
2 years ago, he had his injury. He spent 6 weeks in the ICU. He doesn't remember the entire incident. And then he had a couple weeks in follow-up. And then a couple weeks after that, he had a rear collision accident.
A couple of months after I got out.
A couple months after he got out, he had a rear collision accident. And then just a couple weeks ago, he had a fall. And so I was explaining to him your process and your lab process and how you would send him a lab request in his area. And then once we get the lab request, you can do a 1 hour consult appointment with him. And then Jim was talking to me about how we all think women are hormonal.
Oh,
And I was just getting ready to say we've lost 150,000 men and women to suicide in the past 20 years from war. And I think roughly 70, 80% of that is men. So it looks like men are more hormonal than women. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Amen.
And Dr. Clearfield can explain, his process and what he would do with you.
Yeah.
Well, the hormones are related to a lot of other things other than, just our.
Yeah. Actually, hormones are related to just about everything.
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
hey, Doc, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Well,
Get a little closer to the camera there so they can see your handsome face there, brother.
Change places.
There we go. Chair,
I don't know
please.
how much time I have, but
Yeah.
I'll try to give you the quick skinny. So, so I started on a new career path around 2002, 2003. I was a regular family doctor, and quite frankly, I hated it. There wasn't such a thing then, but if there was, I probably would have quit and become an Uber driver. Would have found that more rewarding and more interesting. I mean, basically, what we did was you'd come in and tell me you had a head injury, and I'd send you to a specialist, and then if that didn't work, then I'd have to find another specialist, and that's basically what we did. And somebody, I guess, needs to sort of coordinate everything, but it really wasn't for me. Serendipitously, I went to a class down I lived in Northeast Pennsylvania at the time. I went to class in Disney World because you need to get out of the winter, at some point when you live in the Pocono Mountains. And it was a class. It was just it said workshop skills, and I didn't really care what the work skills were because, again, it was out of the winter, and Aerosmith had just opened an exhibit at Epcot Center, so that was good enough for me. It turned out to be an indoor roller coaster in the dark, where they would turn you over and empty out all your pockets, which even then I wasn't really thrilled with. But anyway, the skills turned out to be one, putting testosterone pellets in patient's hip, and at that time it was just men, and it was compared to what we do today, it was about a third of the dose. And two was shooting the stuff in people's faces, and it got rid of wrinkles. And no one had heard of it. And I came home and I said, nobody heard of it, and it was Botox, is what it was.
Oh God!
Nobody knew what it was at the time. So I was the first doctor in Northeast Pennsylvania to do Botox, and we got almost 3 times as much for it that we do today, and it costs 3 times as much. So, so that's what we do. We do hormone replacement and non-surgical facelifts. That's our practice. And we look at everything from what I call a hormone-centric point of view. There's 36 hormones in the body. There's 10 of them that are major, and 7 of them are major. There's 3 kind of minor ones. There's a lot of hormones that we would like to deal with, but we're kind of restricted because of regulations. The Europeans are way ahead of us, and that most of my training is from Europeans. So one of the sort of offshoots of this thing that no one would think about at first was that, and Joel was my first patient here. He wandered in here. I can talk about this.
Yeah.
He had no hair. He hadn't shaved in 20 years. Did you tell him this already?
A little bit.
Yeah. He had no hair. He hadn't shaved in 20 years. Well, you can see he hasn't shaved in the last 7. You can see he obviously has hair now. So I went through my list of questions, and basically I've said, well, that sounds like a thyroid deficiency. That sounds like testosterone. That sounds like growth hormone. That sounds like cortisol, stress hormone. And we sent him with a lab slip there to the VA, and they laughed at us and said, this is nonsense. We're not going to do it. So we ended up, sort of financing it ourselves. We have a deal with a cash lab, so it wasn't too terrible. It was about $300, maybe a little bit more. And lo and behold, he had no testosterone, he had no thyroid, he had no growth hormone, he had no cortisol. Basically, he had a damaged pituitary, and treating it with antidepressants and anti-anxiety agents, and then agents to counteract the side effects of the antidepressants and anti-anxiety agents doesn't really get to the problem. Mm-hmm. So you'd had a rollover head injury, I think 20 years, 30 years ago now. And, this was 2015 when that's right? And I got the dates right. 2015 when he showed up. He's still here. He hasn't gone. He showed up one day and hasn't left.
Yeah, he just likes you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why. Mm-hmm. But so we went out. We sort of took our male low testosterone hormone clinic and our female menopause symptom hormone clinic, and we kind of expanded it. At the time I didn't know, so I started doing some research into brain injuries and the pituitary issues. So if you don't know, the pituitary and the hypothalamus, which is the gland that's the master gland above it, are deep in the center of the brain. So if you take a string and go from the middle of your chin to the tip of your head and from ear to ear, where they would meet in the center of your brain, that's where these organs are. And they have the hypothalamus is where all of the hormones are initially generated from. And that's just has this thin layer of nerve tissue. There's not even any blood supply to it. The pituitary, which is where the hormones are stimulated, are made to stimulate your organs, has a very small, tiny. There's two tiny blood vessels. So if you take somebody's head and shake it up, it's not a far-fetched to be able to imagine that these organs are going to get damaged. And but the thing is the symptoms don't show up right away, and so for a long time nobody put two and two together. Now, interestingly, there was a German doctor in 1918 was the first writings that I found about it, and I forget his name now. But he wrote about it in 1918, but that was dismissed because if you remember your history, in 1918, Germany had just lost World War I, and they were just discredited. Anything the Germans had to say about anything just wasn't.
Well, and people were otherwise occupied with the flu,
Spanish flu,
as well as the trenches and everything else.
Yeah. So, but anyway, the German doctor had written about hypothyroidism, the thyroid damage from head injuries, and it kind of got lost in the shuffle for a long time. In the late 90s, one of my mentors, Dr. Mark Gordon, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, he had a head injury, and he was does what I do now, and he was the next one who sort of put two and two together. He went to the military, and offered what he had learned. And at first, again, they didn't want anything to do with it. Right. But eventually, they sort of came around because the veterans, sort of migrated to him because they really weren't getting any help. They were like Joel here. He was on 13 pills a day, 34 doses, and it was just sweeping things under the rug. I mean, he was basically just sort of a zombie. He just living under a bridge and not really functioning. Joel now, he's owned his own home. He has his own car. He has his own businesses. He's been on your show, I know, a number of times.
Yes,
that he's almost quite functional. I don't want to let too much out of the bag because I'll get a big head.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And so we've come up with a protocol for looking at 10 hormones and some peripheral things like vitamins and things that will help with the hormones. Vitamin D, inflammatory markers, cholesterol, of course, and then we look at all of them, and then our job is to normalize them. Not too much, and it's to be Goldilocks. Not too much, not too little.
Right. Folks, there on the little marquee, you see Dr. Clearfield's website, drclearfield.net. Please go there and check it out because you're going to be amazed at all the different things that they do there, they're specialized in. And Emerson is going to be working with Dr. Clearfield. We're going to get Dr. Clearfield back on the show very, very frequently, because we're going to let him pick the topic, because this Tuesday, every Tuesday from now to the end of the year, is all about finding health naturally. And so it's all about content. And we're just simply the TV show that's just going to provide the vehicle for it. And, when it comes to, balancing the body and all that, think of it being like a wheel on a car. If you're going down the road and your right front tire is out of balance, that thing's going to hop up and down. And if something's out of balance in your body, between your gut, your heart, and your brain, you're not going to be having a good day. You're not going to be feeling good. It's going to domino and complicate other things in your life. And pills, regular prescription pills, it just won't get the job done. That's the bottom line.
What's the saying about Western? What we consider as Western medicine is all about cut, poison, or burn.
Like that. Yeah. So
that may be an overstatement, but
so we kind of look at the hormones as the frame of your house.
Yeah.
And you need a solid frame. We can go out to Bloomingdale's, so you can tell where I'm from. You can go out to Bloomingdale's and buy a $5,000 couch, and if you put it in a room with, in a house with a leaky roof and a bad foundation, your $5,000 couch isn't going to last very long. Unfortunately, whoever made us, played a big joke on us also, because by age 25 or 26, the frame starts to deteriorate. And at first you don't notice it. It's almost like, running over a rock and with your car, and there's a little pinhole in the fuel line. And at first you don't notice it. And then, it gets a little bit worse and a little bit worse. And, it takes 20 years for it to really take hold. And then all of a sudden it's like, I can't get out of bed. I can't do anything. I don't feel like anything. I'm a grumpy old man. That's the grumpy old man syndrome. And, when we replace the hormones, I'm going to use testosterone as an example. Testosterone is for sex, right? That's all you hear about. It's, you can't,
more than that.
If it doesn't, well, that's what I'm getting to. Yeah. So there are testosterone receptors throughout the body, and testosterone
for men and women.
Get to that too. You're ahead of me already. So yes, women need a little bit of testosterone and men need a little bit of estrogen. Okay. As an example, estrogen drives blood flow to the brain. That's why girls are smarter than boys to begin with, because they have a lot more of it than we do. And when we first started out 20 years ago, replacing testosterone, our goal was to get the testosterone levels up to 1,500. Now, if you look at normals, it's anywhere from 220 or 240 to about 1,000, which, we can go into the technicalities of that later. But we got it way high. And then one of the things that happens with testosterone is it breaks down into estrogen. And that's where the guys end up with the man boobs. And the real danger there is that if you leave it alone for too long a period of time, it will end up with memory issues and clogging of the arteries and coronary issues and heart attacks and strokes. So we always, and any of your listeners out there, any of your viewers, if they're getting testosterone, they have to have their estrogen levels checked always. Okay, we do it before we see anybody, at 3 months, at 6 to 9 months, and then at least twice a year. But guys so we would block the estrogen down to 0, and then guys would be calling me, telling me they don't know why they put their keys in the freezer and they ended up out in the desert and don't remember how they got there. Yeah. And so then we kind of realized after a while, because we didn't really have anything to go on. We were kind of overdosing, doing overdose. So we've cut it back some, and we can get pretty much the maximum benefit with minimal side effects. Everybody's different, so that's why we need to check on them. And so testosterone, is an antidepressant. It's an anti-anxiety agent. And we can actually look at the total testosterone and free testosterone, the part that does the work, and we can actually predict if someone's going to be apathetic or depressed or full blown depression. And so, especially if somebody who's out there who's taking 3 antidepressants or 4 antidepressants and an anti-anxiety agent, things like that. You really need to check your hormones, because those are just cover-ups. they, if your testosterone levels are low, you're not going to function. No matter how many antidepressants that you take. Now, sometimes we have to use them together. That happens. But again, the hormones are the frame, and the frame is solid. The body's solid.
Yeah. My son-in-law, we lost him in 2013 to suicide. And it was determined post-mortem that he suffered from chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. And they did a bunch of tests on him. They did not know what was wrong, but he could just be fine one moment and the next moment just be totally, like, I don't have a problem. You guys once got a problem. He wasn't violent or anything like that or combative. It's just a total change of his personality. Yeah. And definitely he'd do goofy things. And you go like, that's not him. And at that time, back in 2013, the doctors that he went to, they couldn't find anything.
Well,
they really couldn't.
Unfortunately, they didn't look in the right place.
I understand.
So we were just getting started doing this, back then. And again, low testosterone levels. There's a high incidence of suicide. It's inversely related. Suicide attempts is inversely related to testosterone levels. So when you get a lab test, it'll tell you, depending on the lab, it'll tell you around 260 to 900 or even 1,000 is normal. Well, that's not really good enough. I mean, 300 would be normal, and 890 would be normal. That we really need to narrow that down. So we've seen thousands of patients. So, our goal is about 700 to 900. The patients will be feeling good with minimal to no side effects. But we found that low testosterone levels and low growth hormone levels. Growth hormones got a bad reputation because of the athletes and the politicians. But low growth hormone levels lead to suicidal ideation. Yeah. So when we restore those, those issues, I won't say they all go away, but they're much improved.
Yeah. I know that earlier that Joel was sharing with us that folks out there, that's not close to Reno, Nevada, that they could visit with you virtually, and it'd be a process of you getting them in touch with a lab close to them that will provide what you need from them and be able to communicate with them. And then you could virtually, administer to them or visit with them, counsel them right over the internet.
Yeah, we have patients all over the country. Even we have patients in Poland. We have patients in Czechoslovakia, I think. We have a number of Canadians. We have patients all over the place.
Yeah. So, that really makes it convenient, doesn't it, Emerson, to be able to communicate with your doctor like that?
It's a new world,
Yeah. So. But when it comes to head injuries, ladies and gentlemen, like I say, we're doing a series on this every Tuesday. We're going to be putting them in a special area. So if you're interested in the head injuries or anything to do with Dr. Clearfield, let me put the website back up there again, drclearfield.net. We're going to put them in a special place, and just go to our website. And we'll be able to link them in there. And our website is just ourtvshow.live. If you can remember that real easy, it's a simple term. It'll redirect to our website. And we're looking forward, as we go forward with this series, to be able to get more information from Dr. Clearfield about the natural, the things that he does there. And we're just going to let him just take the, the opportunity and just talk about it.
Here's my first shameless promotion, is that we've actually produced a video course on called The Endocrinology of Traumatic Brain Injury. And it's about 6.5 hours, and it's actually AMA approved for physician credit for 5.75 continuing medical education credit.
Is that on your website?
No, I'll have to get you a different one. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, the website needs to be updated, but anybody who's interested in that, if they can contact me, we'll get them the info on that.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And we go
Emerson,
through, yeah.
Emerson, what do you think about everything you've heard? I've seen you sitting there writing notes and all those good things. And
Well, I think it's the connection with all the different parts. It's refreshing to see it because so often neurosurgeons worked on the brain, right? Another doctor would work on this part of the body, another one on this part. This one's working with the gut. And all of these things are disconnected.
Yeah,
And our body doesn't work in a disconnected way. It's like one of the things that I made a note on in some of the work that I did in the DNA and RNA space. You were talking earlier about people with PTSD, and it's only recently in the last few years that they've realized that PTSD is also connected to the DNA and the RNA in our bodies. And that's why you can have 5 people in a Humvee, hits a roadside explosion, and 3 of the people don't end up having the same level of PTSD response that the other 2 do. That all of this is interconnected. It's not
right.
Little isolated.
We call it, one of the things I like to say that we do well here is we connect the dots.
Yes.
So
it's all interconnected.
Yeah, just as an example, and this one kind of doesn't have anything to do with head injuries, but sometimes it'll develop as autoimmune thyroid disease. So it's known as Hashimoto's thyroiditis. It's got an exotic name, but it means your thyroid's running low, and it's because your immune system is haywire. Now, one of the key characteristics of that is that there's a lot of stomach issues. There's usually food sensitivities, not allergies. So a peanut allergy, someone who's allergic to peanuts, they eat peanuts and they stop breathing. That's one thing. But food sensitivities, and they end up with a lot of stomach pain and joint pain and brain fog, those kinds of things. But those symptoms don't happen for 2 or 3 days. So, who remembers what they ate on today's Tuesday, what you ate on Saturday to try and connect the dots. But if you have this autoimmune type issue when your thyroid is running low, 80% of the immune system is in the small intestine. So naturally, if you connect the dots, you're going to have gastrointestinal issues if you're having an autoimmune problem. Okay, now normal, in the quote unquote real doctor world, we're going to send you to the GI guy. He's going to do a colonoscopy. Oh, there's a little bit of inflammation. Take some Prilosec. Then we're going to go to the endocrinologist, and he says, "Well, your thyroid numbers are normal." Nobody addresses the immune part of it at all. In fact, I've gotten letters saying, "Well, there's nothing you can do about it," and that's just not true. Okay, so you really need to find someone who knows how to put it all together and connect the dots.
That makes perfect sense, doesn't it, Emerson? It really does.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
I have to go, so I'm going to give you Joel back.
Okay, Doc. Yeah.
We'll arrange for a whole hour. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
that sounds good. It's
Thank
good
you
to
now.
meet you, Doc. Okay.
I tell you, Joel, it's really a pleasure he popped in because, ladies and gentlemen, first time me and Joel were doing a show, and I think it's about 2 weeks ago or something, 3 maybe, I don't know. And he came in to get some medication there, the bottles there you see behind Joel. And I said to Joel, "Who's that behind you?" So that's Dr. Clearfield. And I said, "Hey, Dr. say hello to everybody, And he says, well, he looks in the camera. So I see Jim Grant. Who else am I talking to? And Joel actually said E360 TV, which he probably didn't register anything. I said, "Oh, just me and Joel and about, a million people around the world, It kind of took him back a little bit, I'm such a nice guy like it,
Amen.
I tell you. Well, I tell you, I tell you, Emerson, you probably share with us a little bit something that became that you maybe already knew or didn't know, or became more in depth in knowledge? Just share it with us. We got about 3 minutes left, please, sir.
Oh, well, it's I'm not sure exactly what you're thinking of, Jim, but this last injury that I had, one of the things, I'm not able to take any kind of pain medicine or anything like that. And one of the clients that I'm working with is in the cannabinoid space, and actually has been influential with the United Nations and with WHO and with many of the states in the U.S. in terms of getting different cannabinoids legalized. CBD being the one that most people are familiar with, but there's many of them. And one of the amazing things to me was in learning, in the process of working with them, learning that, just like we were talking about hormones there, Jim, or I'm talking about the gut and the immune system, that our body has loads and loads of different endocannabinoid receptors. Our body produces some cannabinoids itself, but the plant-based cannabinoids have a purpose and an effect in our body. I'm not talking about, smoking wacky tobacco and getting high on. I'm talking about primarily the non-addictive, the non-hallucinogenic elements. And for me, in this most recent thing, it just so happens I've been immersed in this for the last few weeks, but it's been able to give me relief from some of the pain from the fall that I had. And do it in a way that was non-addictive, non-carcinogenic, and non-hallucinogenic. Excuse me. And so that's just something new that I've just really learned here recently.
Yeah, you shared with me last night that you're taking one at nighttime. It allows you to rest real good at night.
Yes.
You have to get in the middle of the night and go to the restroom. You're not, you don't have that effect that people normally associate with marijuana. It's just a good. Just share with the folks right quickly how.
Well, I tried a broad spectrum one, which has multiple types of cannabinoids in it, and I was just a little wobbly if I got up to go to the bathroom or get up to go get some water at night, and that's not a good thing if you've had a traumatic brain injury. You don't want to be wobbly. So, but the other one, CBN, didn't have that kind of an effect on me, but it would give me a deep REM sleep. And one of the other things that took place as a result of the rear end collision and my head being slammed against the seat and all was I developed tinnitus in my ears. So right this minute, I'm in the middle of a forest in my head, surrounded by trees full of cicadas going full blast, and they do that 24/7. So the first time that I tried the CBN, I went into a deep REM sleep, and I woke up literally almost groggy, waking up in the morning. It was such a deep sleep, and I hadn't had that in months. And the company that I'm working with on this, again, they're the only company that has been approved to have their product in the physician's desk reference. Now it's called the prescriber's digital reference, I think, the PDR, that every doctor in the country has a copy of, that has certain standards as far as you can't just say, oh, we have a new product, let's put that in there. Right. They're the only company that has been approved for that. And so it's been a sea change for me to be able to have that level of sleep at night that for, well, over a year now, since the rear end collision, I wasn't having. So I'm learning new things all the time.
Yeah. Bless your heart there. And I'm so glad that you shared that with the folks. There's a lot of people out there that live in pain and they're looking for something. And, Emerson is talking about the what's the product again? CBN?
Well,
Yeah.
the CBN product is the, see if I have a bottle of it here. The CBN product is the product that helps me to sleep
Right.
better at night.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is it CBD/N or CBN? The
No,
CBN.
CBN. There are roughly 1,000 different cannabinoids, and
Okay.
they use hemp,
Mhm.
not marijuana. And there is a
Okay.
difference. Hemp and
Mhm.
marijuana are two different. They're
Yeah.
related plants.
Mhm.
But
There's companies that are now creating the CBDs out of regular plants, orange
Mhm.
plants, regular,
yes,
not
yes.
just hemp.
We're getting real close on time. In fact, we're almost got about 25 seconds left. I hate to interrupt.
Real
Ladies,
quick, cholesterol. Cholesterol is how your CBDs and your cannabinoids are delivered throughout your body. So cholesterol is very important.
okay.
Yeah, and cholesterol is not all evil.
Not at all.
That's right.
Yeah,
Ladies and gentlemen, our time is gone. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you have a wonderful day. Be sure and get in touch with Joel there, the Beard of Knowledge. There are Dr. Clearfield, drclearfield.net, Emerson W3, web3direct.com. Our time is gone. We'll see you.